Welcome back to Heritage and Hope Ministries. I wanted to provide a little brief context before jumping into the video today. We're discussing some breaking news regarding a bill coming out of North Dakota, specifically House Bill 1150. This bill proposed to create and enact 3 new sections of Chapter 12.1-30 of the North Dakota Century Code. And this was specifically relating to Sunday closure laws. It was reenacting some of the old sections as well as enacting new sections, specifically in regard to Sunday closure laws. And this would provide a penalty of a misdemeanor in certain circumstances to people that went against this law. And so let's jump into the discussion and find out what happened regarding the vote about this bill that occurred on January 15.
So we are looking at House Bill 1150. And this particular bill was introduced on January 7th, 2025. Now, the hearing was literally about a week later, so not a lot of time to react. And I must say, for all of our brethren up in North Dakota, I would say, folks, we need somebody who is paying attention on social media these days to jump in on these kinds of bills. I wanted to ask you, as a part of his rationale for this is that he thinks that there's a problem that American workers are facing today. But I want to ask, how real is that problem? Because he's describing, well, I wanted to get my Sunday off, a couple of times I asked and they said, no, we can't accommodate you or whatnot. Is that a real problem currently, or is that not a real problem?
It depends on which workforce you're in.
It's true to a degree, but think about this for a moment. Groff versus DeJoy. We just had the Supreme Court case that took place. The postal workers' right to take that time off and have it protected already exists. There's protection there in the Civil Rights Act that discourages discrimination, against somebody who has a sincerely held religious belief. So first off, the problem that he's describing doesn't even need to be addressed in such a manner as this. But the other thing, too, is he is dismissing all of the language in the bill that, we could nitpick about this or that or what's essential or what's non-essential. But ultimately, he's passing that off and refusing to address it and just say, well, somebody else did that, so therefore it's not my problem, essentially. Mm-hmm. There's some more aspects to the bill here I want to get to in just a moment. But here's House Bill 1150. And Section 1... again, trying to add back some of this misdemeanor language that was there before. And, in many states, these laws had gotten kind of defunct where, it was something that, was on the books but not really heavily enforced. My concern is that now that we're seeing this push to bring these laws back, the climate has changed a little bit where there are people out there that would seek to enforce these kinds of laws. But nevertheless, I would assume that would be the purpose and intent of any law. But Section 1 reads, except as otherwise provided in Sections 2 and 3 of this Act, it is a Class B misdemeanor for any person between the hours of 12 midnight and 12 noon on Sunday to engage in or conduct business or labor for profit in the usual manner or location, operate a place of business open to the public, or authorize or direct that person's employees or agents to take action prohibited under this section. Now, one of the things that we'll see here in just a moment is who is Matt Heilman. This is Matthew Heilman. He's an American politician who's a member of the North Dakota House of Representatives in the 7th District. He's 23 years of age. Obviously, you're kind of a young fellow, right? Mm-hmm. And I wanted to ask, what religion do you suppose he is?
Certainly know who it sounds like he's influenced by.
Right, right. Well, I've got one more really short clip here where he tells us himself. So let's take a look at that real fast.
I think there is something there. Like, for example, I'm Catholic, and you can go to Mass at 5 p.m. on Saturday, and it counts for Sunday.
So he's from the Catholic religion, right? Mm-hmm. So I got to ask, when we think of this bill, of course, attached to it penalties. A misdemeanor is something you can go to jail for, right?
Well, yeah, misdemeanors you could certainly, depending on it, there's some classification about misdemeanors depending on the state. Like you can have a Class A versus Class B versus Class C. But yeah, you could.
Yeah. It, you know, it's definitely something we've been expecting. And, this isn't the only state that is talking about bringing these blue laws back. We've seen Utah here recently, representative there talking about going down the same road. We just recently actually talked about that in the last video.
Yep.
If you haven't seen that video, go back, take a look at it. You're going to get a sense of where this is coming from. But one of the things that I want to point out about Matthew Heilman is some of his influence. Okay, so we see right here in his bio, he served as the founder and president of the BSC, or Bismarck State College chapter of Turning Point USA. What do you guys know about Turning Point USA?
Turning Point USA is in support of Project 2025.
Right.
They're a young, I believe they're a younger.
Charlie Kirk is heavily involved with them.
Yes.
Yeah. So they're part of the group that is going to college campuses, and they'll have conversations with the youth, and it's more right-wing leaning, heavily, I'd say.
Yeah, actually, so here's a little bit of that evidence right there. If you go to Project 2025's website, there's Turning Point USA. They are one of the sponsors and affiliates with Project 2025. And of course, one of the things that Project 2025 is doing is trying to prepare a playbook, not only of legislation that they want to do, but also personnel who are willing to back that. Now, I don't know if Matthew is directly on that personnel playbook there, but he's definitely kicking that off as in terms of some of their objectives that they're trying to do. And you mentioned Charlie Kirk. If you go to NatCon and their statement of principles, where they talk about congregation and family, man and women, the Sabbath and the sacred, one of the co-signers for the statement of principles is Charlie Kirk from Turning Point USA. So there were obviously some more sponsors to this bill. We can go back here, and Heilman's the sponsor in lead, but we've got Hoverson, Johnson, Meyer, Schatz, Clemens, Luck, about 7, I believe, in total, all Republican representatives who are pushing this. When you think about like Protestant evangelical America pushing for this at the end of time, it's all basically coming from that side of the aisle, at least in this case. One of the sponsors, though, is this gentleman, Jeff Hoverson. He is an American politician, pastor, and businessman who serves as a Republican member of the North Dakota House of Representatives, but he holds a bachelor's degree in education and Master of Divinity from Lutheran Brethren Seminary. So are we seeing Catholics and Protestants come together?
Reuniting.
And uniting on this same initiative? We're seeing them clasp hands exactly as the Great Controversy talks about them doing, and trying to bring Sunday rest. And folks, this objective right here, obviously they ran into some problems when they were there, but it really, I think, is a case study of what we're going to be facing in the future.
So just to be clear, this bill, they voted on it today, was it?
They voted on it today, and the motion was a little confusing because you would think that somebody would just vote yay or nay on the bill, right? But what they voted was yay or nay on a motion to dismiss the bill. Okay.
So they didn't actually vote no on the bill.
They voted yay to dismiss the bill.
Okay.
Okay, yay to dismiss the bill. But one of the things that you can see that I found was interesting, we didn't have a strong representation orally for the discussion. I felt like, I mean, there was some representation there, but look at all of the individuals who wrote in. We had a lot of people write in, and folks, there's all the document numbers there of people who gave their opinions and their objections and whatnot. And I read almost entirely everybody writing in opposition to it. You had a lot of people writing in, and we praise God for all those people who took the time to express their concerns about religious liberty. I note a few people in favor, and notice this one, Christopher Dodson, North Dakota Catholic Conference. Catholics coming along and pushing this, exactly what we've been expecting. The other one here from District 3, resident, is Lydia Hoverson. And I got to ask, could that be the spouse for Jeff Hoverson, who's actually sponsoring the bill, like co-sponsoring the bill? It sounds like basically this was a family member writing in to try and say, hey, we need to get this passed. Apart from that, and Matthew himself writing in favor of his own bill, just about everybody else was in opposition.
Well, this is interesting because on our previous video, I was going through some of the comments, and this was about the Utah bill that's kind of being talked about. And one of the commenters was saying like, well, we shouldn't view a national Sunday law as a foregone conclusion, in that we shouldn't try and fight it. We absolutely should be trying to fight it, and that's 100% in favor. It's kind of like if you have nuclear war, right? You want to do everything in your power to prevent the first nuke from going off.
Yep.
But you also have to know that once that button gets pushed and the first nuke does go off, that's probably the end. For in modern society, I mean, like mutually assured destruction, right?
Why should we try to fight it?
Because we still have to warn people.
Exactly.
We still have to get people ready and tell them the truth about the Sabbath and about our God, which is not a God of coercion.
Yeah.
And give them the opportunity. We should be praying to hold back the winds of destruction, to hold back the calamity, to get not just the whole world ready, but also our church ready.
Yeah,
exactly. So it's a prayer for mercy. It's a prayer for us to be able to spread the gospel.
Right.
It was interesting hearing him trying to argue that it was going to draw people to the state and be beneficial for the state in terms of commerce. From a religious perspective, one thing I would say is Alonzo Jones did a really good job arguing before 1888. In 1888, the Senate Labor Committee there about the Blair Act. And one of his points was that legislating morality like this, all it does is actually multiply hypocrisy and false religion, because you have individuals trying to rest out of a coercive element instead of out of true love for God. So this doesn't do anything to forward and help true religion. And when it comes to rest, there's plenty of people out there with differing circumstances where if you they may want that extra time to work on Sundays so that they can maybe take a vacation later on or rest in accordance with what they want to do, or they may have once again that sincere conviction of another day. Yeah. And that, of course, that was alluded to in subsection 2 here, where it does not apply to a person who in good faith observes a day other than Sunday as the Sabbath, if that person refrains from engaging in or conducting business or labor for profit and closes the place of business to the public between the hours of 12 midnight and 12 noon on the day observed as the Sabbath. But here's my concern. Who's going to be determining whether or not it was done in good faith or not? Who judges good faith?
Well, and I think ultimately too, like, how do you get somebody to swallow poison? You don't just hand it to them and, you put it in a nice little dessert, right? And the poison pills inside.
Yeah.
So, you can just say, well, this is for everybody. We're not saying it has to be this day until some, major event forces the issue and, then it all turns around.
Well, Michael, so imagine you passed this bill and you had Seventh-day Adventists come out and say, well, we're going to have all our businesses closed on Saturday. Okay. And we're going to have all of our employees request off Saturday. Okay. Then you had a Muslim come along and say, well, we want all of our days off on Friday. So then you've expanded your weekend. So now you have to have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off for various businesses for various reasons. It gets very messy, right?
Absolutely. And the other problem I'm seeing here is that their allowance to be closed down is between 12 at midnight and 12 noon. That doesn't cover, for Adventists.
That's true.
It doesn't actually cover our day of worship. And so even with this in the law, if they were to allow other days, it doesn't give us the allowance for the full Sabbath.
Right. Because we
It's
know
only
we
part
view
of the day.
the Sabbath from Friday sundown to Saturday sundown.
Exactly.
Think about it too from this perspective. If you are going to mandate that businesses be closed on Sundays, those people who, let's say, keep the seventh-day Sabbath, but need to go do, they work the rest of the week and they need to go do their shopping on Sunday because that's their free day off to go do shopping. If everything else is closed on Sundays, they don't get that opportunity unless they're going and shopping specifically at maybe Adventist or Sabbath keeping owned businesses that have the right to open on Sundays, which is going to be in the minority. All your big box stores are going to be closed. They're going to be at a massive disadvantage in terms of their ability to go shop and do commerce from everybody else who, the vast majority of retailers are going to be open on Saturday. You get a smorgasbord to choose from, but on Sundays, everything's closed and you're in church. You're basically giving the benefit of shopping to the majority population, but the minority who keeps a different day is at a distinct disadvantage because when they want to go out and shop on Sunday, everything else is closed.
Yeah.
So it's not fair in that regard.
Do you have and I don't know if you have this in your slides or not, but do you have the list of items that they prohibited from selling?
Yeah.
You do right there.
Yeah.
You look at that. Look at how comprehensive that is.
Yeah.
That's insane. Look at that.
Yeah.
Like electric fans, radios, television sets, washing machines, dryers. Like you want to go buy a new appliance? Nope.
Yeah.
You want to go to Home Depot? Nope.
This is where the government climbs way up in your business and says, we're going to dictate to the nth degree of what you can or can't sell on Sunday because we consider that the Sabbath. I mean, does this sound anything like what the Pharisees' religion had basically come down to?
But you raise a very interesting point about the disadvantage in the time. So imagine that there was a depression, okay? And this list expanded to necessities like food, water, right? And maybe the only time you could go and get them is on the weekend. So you may have to make a choice whether to feed your kids or to obey God's law and trust that He's going to provide. That's ultimately where this is going to go.
But they're going to wrap this up in a bow that's the least intrusive to start with, right?
To start with, yeah.
Start with,
Yeah.
I was reading, again, there was a second comment on the previous video, and there was a commenter saying, Adventists have been proclaiming that there's going to be a Sunday law forever, and it's never going to happen. And when 2029 gets here, there'll still never be a Sunday law. And I'm like, we're having talk of it at our legislative assemblies. Like, what else do you call that? It's right there.
Yeah.
The framework's being put in place.
It is.
Very clearly.
It is.
What did you guys think about, I keep coming back to the way that this was very artfully done and presented about framing it in terms of we're protecting the employer or the employee rather. We're protecting the employee because these employees are being preyed upon by these unfair business owners. And at the same time, out the other side of his mouth, he says, I'm pro-capitalism.
Yeah, sounded like a very communist statement to me is kind of what I was thinking when he was saying
Yeah,
it.
how do you say, like, I'm pro-capitalism, and then out the other side talk about workers' rights?
And where is the where does the root of communism? Where did it come from? If you go down that rabbit hole and look at Karl Marx's influences, it's all from the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we see it a lot in politics, that they say whatever they need to say.
Yeah.
And, people just hear what they say, believe what they say because we believe people at face value mostly.
Yeah.
And
Before COVID, at least.
That's right, yeah. But, they just spin lies so often and they do it so artfully too.
Yeah.
I keep coming back to, if you really do believe in capitalism, then shouldn't the employer have some decision over whether or not they're going to be open on a particular day and have decision to maybe, choose to, be closed on a particular day, what they want to do? Because, the commandment of God does talk about 6 days shall ye labor, right? So in it, there's a bit of a command there, not only to rest on the Sabbath, but to also be employed the rest of the week doing something.
The interesting thing is a lot of businesses, these chains, they're owned by private equity groups. I mean, there's private equity groups that own big chains. So you almost have to have this law more so to control like the smaller businesses, the mom and pop, as opposed to the big retailers, because they're already owned by private equity groups across the board, and they're all tied together with the big banks.
So one of the comments that Matt Heilman referenced was talking very much about what's going on over in Europe. How, hey, they have laws over there that protect this. Why can't we do that or do something similar to that? And if you go over to Germany, the Article 139, the Bundesrepublik Deutschland, they push for, it's part of actually German law, that Sundays are reserved for rest and spiritual life. Like that's part of Germany's law. And it's been heavily pushed by the unions over there, which are all about protecting workers' rights. And you've got Uni Europa, 200 million strong, parent union for Google Corporation. They were the ones that were joining together over there here the past few years to push for Sunday laws for all of Europe. So it's no surprise to me to see the workers' rights, attack there. It goes back to that encyclical Rerum Novarum, which is Catholic social doctrine for pushing for protecting Sunday rest to protect workplace equality. They're going to do this through workplace equality. They're going to do it through the environment, things like Laudato Si. But at the end of the day, it is fundamentally a religious law. There's no getting around that. I mean, you can frame it in different ways to make a legal argument that will, somebody's willing to buy. But at the end of the day, it's very much a religious law.
Yeah, they have to do it wide to get everybody on board.
That's right. Yeah, it's like casting the net as wide as possible.
Exactly.
They're pitching benefits for the employees, pitching benefits for families.
Exactly.
Having a day off together, and for the environment. So one way they're going to get everybody somehow.
Yeah.
But, eventually there's going to be a law like this that's passed on a national level. We've said that for forever. And we're seeing the groundwork for it being laid. And is it going to take a calamity? Is it going to take a economic collapse or some kind of big destruction? I don't know. I know that we are going to see a lot more of that stuff. But what is our response? What's our response when they do pass something like this? Are we to go along with it? Are we to, stand out there on a picket line with a sign and protest it? What do you do?
It's a good question. But what one thing we do know is that what Ellen White tells us is that it's the people who are going to ask for it, right?
Yeah.
And so when people are, when the general public is crying out for, a day of rest, Sunday, which will default to, then, God's people have got to be there and putting up some type of a defense, at least going and doing something, picketing or whatever.
Right.
I believe so, yeah. I think we need to be vocal at that time.
I think standing up for the truth.
Yeah.
That makes a huge statement in itself. You saw again a lot of that with COVID. I think you had this big movement one way. That's another one you were kind of talking earlier. It's like when someone tells me, "Trust us," we're going to do this to protect you. I have no faith in that anymore whatsoever after COVID. I think we all kind of learned a lesson there. Surrender your rights. We're doing this to protect you.
Just believe
Trust us. Just believe us. Yeah, exactly. And so it's going to be more of the same. And I think there probably will be some catalyst. I don't know if exactly what that is.
There's probably going to be somebody out there that's like, well, hey, this is just another attempt that failed. But out of this, I think one of the things that's highlighted for me is that we're seeing something come out of this project 2025 and Turning Point USA and NatCon. We're beginning to see a somewhat of, I believe, an organized movement that's going on and gaining steam within the Christian nationalists. And there are more people that are calling for this now. The fact that a 23-year-old young, representative can go and read this article and then push for it. I'm seeing a lot more articles in the news that people are reading And some of these people out there are no doubt legislators who are reading some of these articles. And we're going to probably see more of these pushes. I know we are at some point, but I think it's a sign that there is a shift in the winds where more people are wanting to push it.
Do you think some of the insanity over the last several years that you've seen on the left, as far as, you know, having pornographic books in schools and, you know, all of those things have radicalized people, have pushed them to the right, to the point now we have a significant number that are almost radicalized to the right because of that?
You know, actually, it's interesting you bring that up, because if we go back to the bill sponsors here, Jeff Halverson, one of the other initiatives that he had pushed for recently for North Dakota was to bring the Ten Commandments back into the classroom. And so for him to do that, and it was either him or Jeff Johnson, one of the two, but I believe it was Halverson. There's definitely a need for these Christian nationalists to bring back religion. And they're trying to bring back the Ten Commandments in the public school system. We saw that back in 1888. That was one of Philip Schaff's three legs of church-state union, where you could have the government involved in marriage, blue laws, and education, like religion in the public school system. And so they're definitely going after those pillars and trying to bring back church-state union there.
And those are the exact pillars that were attacked as well, though.
Yeah.
Because you had marriage attacked with the LGBTQ agenda. You've had the school system attacked, like you said, with pornographic or explicit material in books in classrooms, forced reading. And now you're seeing it from a religious standpoint with these blue laws being brought forth. And so, of course, there's going to be a swing back the other direction. You know, like you were saying, I think in our previous video, people have had enough. They've had enough of the licentiousness, and they said, enough is enough. We've got kids. We don't want to be part of this agenda.
Going back to what James was saying before, you know, how now we're actually starting to see a lot of these things taking places, like people coming out a bit more openly and advocating for the Sunday law. What we've got to remember, for those people who have, you know, I didn't grow up as Adventist, right? So I didn't grow up all the time hearing, oh, there's a Sunday law coming, Sunday law coming. I can imagine if you grew up like that and you sort of got to 40, 50 years old and you're like, that still isn't here. It'd be,
Right.
You know, I'm not excusing it, but you could say, you know, it's not coming because we've been talking about it forever. But the fact is that we know that the work for passing the Sunday law has been taking place in the darkness for years and years and years, right?
Yeah.
It's been undercover for such a long time. And now all of a sudden you're actually starting to see peekaboos of it here and there, you know, just people coming out, and it's becoming very loud. You know, just about everywhere you look, every day there's some new news about some Sunday law somewhere, somebody talking about it in politics. And that's got to show you that, you know, it's bursting at the seams. This movement which has been taking place in darkness is like bursting at the seams. They just are fanging to get out, you know. And so, I think it's right at the doors.
And that's exactly what Spirit of Prophecy says. Because Ellen White says, you know, that the Sunday law is making its way in darkness.
Yeah.
And so when you see that happening, we know what's coming. You know?
Yep.
Well, if you guys didn't have any other thoughts, I did want to end on a clip that we're going to play here as we finish, as we close out. Just a kind of compilation of different clips of some of our various politicians like Trump, kind of pushing more towards the combination of church-state power. So we'll go ahead and play that now, but join us next time. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this video to stay up to date with more content in the future. We're going to be coming out with a lot more in the coming weeks. So go ahead and enjoy this compilation. We'll see you next time.
The German church thought that they had a religious exemption when it came to standing against evil. They said, oh, we just want to do church. And shame on you, because God has called you to disciple your people. And when somebody tells you Christians aren't supposed to be political, that's Christian nationalism, folks, that's the voice of the devil.
Mr. President, I speak of the mystery of your life. The scripture that was appointed for the day of your birth spoke of the bringing of God's vessel, a trumpet, into the world. President Trump, you were born into the world to be a trumpet of God, a vessel of the Lord in the hands of God. God called you to walk according to the template. He called you according to the template of Jehu, the warrior king. He called Jehu to make his nation great. Again, Jehu came to the capital city with an agenda to drain the swamp. Jehu forged an alliance with the religious conservatives of the land, so it was your destiny to do the same.
What happens for you in the second term for faith office? What's your administration look like?
Religion is under threat in this country, serious threat, and we can't let that happen. You do such an incredible job, and you keep the country together, and the more powerful you become, the better the country is going to be. So I'm just with you all the way.
So you said that you were saved in the end by an angel. How have your views about God changed in the last 8 years, and particularly after getting shot?
Well, look, I've always been a believer. You know, there's a certain pastor, Robert Jefferson, and he said, you know, Trump may not be the best Christian of all, but he's the only one going to take us to the promised land because he's the best leader and he's the toughest guy and he's going to be able to get us through this crazy life. And he was a big supporter. And now I have unbelievable evangelical and Christian support because I've done a great job for them. And
Democrats drawing attention to what they say are extreme elements in the Conservative Heritage Foundation's policy playbook. It's a nearly 1,000-page wish list of what Republicans want to see happen if they take control of the White House in January 25. The project is divided into 4 main pillars: giving the president more power and installing loyal backers, defending America's borders and sovereignty, declaring the family as the focal point of American life, and more firmly rooting Christian ideology in U.S. society.
The Fox News Decision Desk can now officially project that Donald Trump will become the 47th President of the United States.
But Donald Trump wins the state of Alaska, and as a result, Donald Trump is once again going to be the President of the United States.
Donald Trump has won the 2024 election. He'll be the first American president to lose office in an election, stay out of office for 4 years, come back and win the next election to return to the White House for a second term. The last American president to do that was Grover Cleveland in 1892. This is an extraordinary turn of events.
we're going to be signing a day of prayer, and that'll be on Sunday. It'll be a very special day, and I don't know when this was done last, but it's been a long time ago. Is that a correct statement? It's been a long time ago.
Trump has long cultivated his support among Christian conservatives. He got about 80% of the white evangelical Christian vote in 2016 and 2020 and appears to be on track for a similar result this year. But it took on a new tone after the assassination attempt in July.
But as I look back at my life's journey and events, I now recognize that it's been the hand of God leading me to where I am today. And my faith took on new meaning on July 13th in Butler, Pennsylvania, where I was knocked to the ground, essentially, by what seemed like a supernatural hand. So I'm here tonight to deliver a simple message to Christians across America. It's time to stand up and save your country.
It's a thought shared by many of his supporters.
I think that God spared his life for such a time as this, you know. I really believe that it's a miracle that took place.
Now, in the closing days of the campaign, some of his supporters have characterized Kamala Harris in biblical terms.
She is the devil, whoever screamed that out. She is the Antichrist.
Religion and Christianity are the biggest things missing from this country, and I truly believe that we need to bring them back, and we have to bring them back fast. I think it's one of the biggest problems we have. That's why our country is going haywire. We've lost religion in our country. All Americans need a Bible in their home, and I have many. It's my favorite book. It's a lot of people's favorite book. This Bible is a reminder that the biggest thing we have to bring back America and to make America great again is our religion. Religion is so important. It's so missing, but it's going to come back, and it's going to come back strong, just like our country is going to come back strong.